All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Investor Select Conference. My name is Robert Blum, Managing Partner of Lytham Partners, and we welcome back during this fireside chat MannKind, ticker symbol of MNKD on the Nasdaq, and their Chief Executive Officer, Mike Castagna. We're going to dive into a fireside chat here in a moment, but I do want to remind everyone that if you've not already signed up for a one-on-one and would like to do so either today or sort of throughout the week here, you can reach out to me, Blum, B-L-U-M, at lythampartners.com. You can visit the website, lythampartners.com/virtual. There's a one-on-one meeting request button. We will look to get you taken care of. So with that, Mike, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Let's sort of start high level, just for anyone that might be a little bit newer to the company. Talk a little bit about the company and maybe your background as well.
Great. My name is Mike Castagna. I've been at the company going on 7 years this year. It's hard to believe how many of these we've done together over that time frame. And I became CEO 6 years ago this May. So it's been a wonderful turnaround. The company is 31 years old, going on 32 years old this year. It was founded in 1991. And it was originally an inhalation platform company, right? That's what Al Mann, our founder, had built and focused on. Inhaled insulin was the core product and portfolio that we worked through. And over the last 5 years, we really have started to differentiate the company into more of a inhalation orphan lung platform company. And that's that decision we started in 2017 and 2018, 2019, and now it's all starting to really start to roll. So I think it's really exciting about where we've come and where we are. And diabetes is still critically important to our future, but it's a well-diversified company now compared to where we were 5-6 years ago.
On that point right there, becoming more diversified, you are, and sort of talk through the various sources of revenue stream, just to kind of set the stage for the rest of the discussion here.
Yeah, for those that are new to the story, we were a single product company for a long time, never had a commercial infrastructure. And over the last 5-6 years, we started to build up a pipeline of assets as well as a commercial infrastructure to handle our diabetes business. And we just purchased another asset called Vigo last year in diabetes. And we just announced last week that we're moving our pipeline asset from phase 1 to phase 2/3. I'll call it an adaptive phase 3 design. Then we got our second drug approved last year, United Therapeutics did, called Tyvaso DPI. And that's a version of a nebulized product that we've now made into a dry powder. And that's a longer story we'll talk about, I'm sure, today. But that got approved. That's off to a great start. And so now when you look at the company where we were a year ago, we'll have revenue on Afrezza, we'll have revenue on Vigo, we'll have revenue on Tyvaso, we'll have revenue on Tyvaso manufacturing. Plus, if we put more stuff in R&D or partnerships, that brings in more things. So really fully transformed company from where we were even 12 months ago.
No, absolutely. So let's, you mentioned it, I want to dive into Afrezza, Tyvaso DPI here in a moment, but just a week ago, you announced, made an announcement regarding one of your pipeline with clofazimine. Maybe just sort of talk about sort of the movement of clinical profile assets and sort of over the next 24 months, what you see there.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was an exciting asset. We spent a year working through, do we do a powder formulation? Do we buy the company? Do we bring a nebulized forward? And so we wound up purchasing the company in December of 2020. And that asset's going from preclinical through phase 1. We just filed our meeting with FDA, got some feedback on the phase 2/3 design. Conceptually, the FDA has agreed to an adaptive phase 2/3. And so now we just got a few last minute things we'll tie up there. And once we wrap up the CMC part of this, we'll be ready to start dosing this in patients, hopefully in the second half of this year is our expectation. For those of your listeners who don't know what NTM is, it's a rare lung disease. It's mainly concentrated along the eastern seaboard of the U.S. and maybe it's more humid areas. So Japan, South Korea, it's like a bacteria that just grows in certain endemic areas. And so from a commercial infrastructure, you don't need a huge sales force. You need a very focused sales force effort in a few countries. So in the U.S., there's about 100,000 patients. In Japan, there's about 100,000 patients. In South Korea, there's a chunk. And so when you really look at how you think about the asset, the development of the program, where you put your trial sites, it's very, very focused. And so this trial is going to be, a couple hundred people. And, it's a 6-month endpoint. So we should get data pretty quickly once we get started. It'll be compared to the standard of care. And when you think about this disease, what's unique about this particular drug A lot of the drugs here are used off label, and they have a lot of toxic side effects. And so they're all tuberculosis drugs. There's not been a lot of innovation. There's only one drug approved for this particular disease. And so we're hoping to get to market to be the second approved drug in this disease. And we're aiming for earlier lines of treatment. And what's unique about it is it'll be 4 weeks of dosing, and then you're off for 2 months, and then another 4 weeks of dosing. So it's really like a two course dose over 6 months. And that really frees up the patient from what else they're doing every day, and maybe hopefully gives them better results in the end and gets them back in the productivity of life.
All right, great. Thank you and I want to go into the rest of the pipeline maybe if we have time here at the end, but let's start with the Afrezza, or sort of dive further into it. Afrezza. How do you see this strategy evolving? Let's go over the next year or so.
Yeah, no, I mean it's exciting. It's Afrezza's been a long turnaround asset. It's taken longer than I wanted to, unfortunately. But I think we're at a spot in the company where we have good financial capabilities and ability to fund growth. And when you think about Afrezza, one of the challenges was, we'd call on doctors and 90% of the time we didn't get a script. So we purchased a second asset last year called Vigo, and that's a patch device that delivers basal bolus, and that had a couple thousand prescribers with it. So now we've restructured our sales force this year, going out where they're going to have Afrezza and Vigo in the same bag. I just came back from the meeting on Friday. And so they're going to have Afrezza Vigo in the same bag, be calling on the same target. And what's nice about that is we start to build some synergies and scale. So there's trainings that have to happen. That can happen for both products in a geography. We can have that infrastructure support. Either product by itself could never afford or maintain a nurse trainer in a particular area, right? Because they just weren't big enough. Now with both products, we can provide a better onboarding experience, better reimbursement support. The Vigo device has wide open access to patients, so they pay the lowest copay. It's preferred. The Afrezza this year, which was exciting, is Medicare in the Inflation Protection Act that came through last year. Medicare put an insulin cap of $35 a patient. So now all of our Medicare patients who really couldn't access the drug or afford the drug because it was considered non-formulary or second, third tier, they got hit with these huge deductibles and huge copays that we just couldn't do anything for. And the competition just really forces patients not to have options. And so that was one thing that changed this year is the government really made it $35. And we've already seen a nice lift here in January of people who were paying cash, to be honest with you, for our drug are now getting it covered on Medicare. And, so that's great. And so so this year, I think when we look at Afrezza, access is becoming a barrier that's being removed. Vigo is another device that our sales team can sell. And I think what investors are going to watch and see, and I do think it's a watch and see, is, can the Afrezza sales team sell both products and grow revenue, quarter over quarter? And then we have a couple of nice unveilings this next 12 months. Is number one is we have a trial readout from India. That should happen in Q2, and that's in type 2 patients with a new dosing regimen. The PEACH trial's more than halfway enrolled now. And so that should finish up enrollment by the end of this year and hopefully get results early next year, maybe by Q1 at the earliest. And that trial is important because people want to understand, is this safe? We think it's safe. We believe it's safe, right? The FDA has given us permission to keep going. But when you're going into kids, safety is a much higher barrier, right? And so we wouldn't be going into kids if we didn't believe the product was safe. But not only do we think it's safe, we think it's, if dosed properly, it can give you a better outcome or a better safety profile. So that's the results we're looking for. It's a non-inferiority trial, so we just have to be as good as the standard of care. But we're hoping, based on what we know about the product and what we've modeled, that properly dosed Afrezza should provide some benefit, whether it's hypoglycemia or A1C. That's what we're looking for. But in the worst case scenario, we're as good as, and we think that that's still a good value proposition because parents don't want to jab their kids 3 to 5 times a day. And so that's important. And then the third thing we're doing is we're going to be in February, we'll be showcasing the results from our pump switch trial, which we switched 10 people off an insulin pump and kept 10 or 5 on the pump, and then we added Afrezza on top of a pump. And so that data came out. We've kind of announced preliminarily that you can basically get off your insulin pump if you want to. That Tresiba Afrezza provides a similar outcome. And so now that's something that goes against the entire grain of diabetes, right? Everyone's trying to use technology and add pumps and CGM to your life. And we're trying to take complexity out of your life and the diabetes burden out of your life. So that's a 180 from what the the industry, and I'll say the community, has been trying to do the last 20 years. And so we're trying to say, you don't need the carb count, just estimate your dose and you'll get good control. And that's like a crazy thought for people. I was talking to somebody today and I said, my vision is that we treat diabetes with 1 shot of basal a week plus Afrezza. And if we could do that, we remove a lot of copays, a lot of cost, a lot of damage, a lot of scariness. But that, Novo is supposed to get a once weekly basal approved in the next 12 to 18 months. And if that happens, we can really bring that dream to reality. So that's one of the things we're doing this year is we're going to fund a larger study, switch trial, where people will come off their insulin pump or their injectable insulin and randomized to Afrezza Tresiba. And so we're looking forward to that study as well. That's a 3-month study, should be done hopefully between now and early next year as well. So we'll have 3 new data sets, and that's really going to pave the future for Afrezza, meaning, is this drug as good as we think it is? Is it going to help more people than we think? And then that's going to be the proof in the pudding. And so then it's a marketing question, a sales question. How much money are you willing to spend or not spend, depending on the data you see?
Right. And so I was going to talk a little bit about that sort of spend. Is there incremental spend that's going to be needed there? And then, you also talked a little bit about some of the international opportunities. Just, maybe expand to the extent that you can there.
Yeah, we've been challenged by our board to make sure that the diabetes business is cash flow break even this year. So not the whole company, but in particular that business is no longer a drag. And we think that's possible. We bought Vigo, that's accretive to earnings in terms of cash generation this year, plus the Afrezza and where that growth we see there. So we believe this business should be break even by the end of the year. And that's our number one mandate. So we don't see, even though we're funding some of these things, they've come out of other budget challenges, right? So we've taken money out of other parts of the business and put it back into these other areas. And so that's number one. On the international side, that's, we won't make a lot of money international. Realistically, you don't make a lot of money on insulin outside the US. But there's 500 million people in the world that aren't doing well. And so I believe ethically and culturally, we have a mission to help those patients. And how do we get our drug to those patients, right? So we got Brazil with about 60 million. You got India with about 80 million. That's 1/3 of the world's population plus US. So we're almost 50% of the way there with what we're doing today, of being able to potentially help 1/3 of the world's population with diabetes. And that's exciting for our team and our mission and our culture and our company. So India will have the trial readout. Assuming that goes well, they'll be filing for approval there this year. Brazil, we're just working on extending our expiration dating so that we make a big lot of drug, we can sell at the lowest possible price in Brazil. And so those are the 2 things we're working on. Eventually we'll go back into those countries. But what that does is really helps us make our factory more efficient, because there's so much capacity that was built that being able to ship, millions of units to these other countries ultimately will bring the factory cost down and make it more efficient.
Yep. Let's transition here. Tyvaso DPI. For those, again, that just might be newer to the situation, kind of a quick summary of where we, how we got here, where we are today, and maybe just kind of any performance updates that you might be able to share since recent approval.
Yeah, Tyvaso journey started in 2017, and we made a choice to fund the phase 1 trial. We really believed that we would differentiate from the standard of care, which in our opinion was Tyvaso nebulizer. And our point of differentiation was, could we dose higher, right? How high could we go? Because one of the things we saw as a gap in treatment was the ability to tolerate and dose in a convenient way. And our phase 1 study showed you can go all the way up to 150 micrograms and be safe and tolerable. And that was in 2018, we got those results. We then licensed the product to UT and worked with them over the last 4 years to go from phase 1 all the way through approval in 2022. And that was really exciting. And so this product, in the meantime, UT got approved for interstitial lung disease, ILD, subset of PH, and then they got the PH, and then they're working on IPF. So we look at this as a long-term partnership, a long-term investment on both parties, and that we're scaling up the manufacturing plant behind me. Thank God it's as big as it is, because we had some shell space in there that we could build an expansion as opposed to building from scratch, because then you can get something up and running in about a year and a half. If you had to build from scratch, you're talking 2 to 4 years. And so just depending on what steps of the process are you taking on. So we're in the middle of building out that factory. We can handle the demand today for the 2 indications on the market for Tyvaso, but if they were to get IPF, that population is 10 times bigger than the other 2. And so we got to really scale that manufacturing up. in order to get ready. And UT has been really working with us to make sure we're adequately supported in that effort. And then trying to think on the pulmonary side, we don't talk much about forecasts. We're kind of in the blackout period right now, but I think if you look at Q3, it's off to a very strong start. I think one analyst never updated his forecast when the launch was delayed. We hit his third quarter forecast in launch in the first quarter of launch, right? So I think that tells you it's off to a great start. Patient stories are amazing. I see stuff on Facebook and other stories that a mom saying I can go to the grocery store for the first time. I can go to the movies with my child. I can have a family dinner at their house instead of mine. Just being able to leave their house, right? These patients are stuck in their house because they set up their nebulizer, and every 6 hours they got to do that. This gives them the freedom to be on the road. So we're excited about it. I think it's going to help a lot of patients. I hope the IPF works out with UT and our partner, and they've been a phenomenal partner to work with, and feelings vice versa, I believe. And so that's exciting. But I think this product is off to a great start. It's going to help a lot of patients, and our team is just busy trying to make sure we keep up ahead of demand.
Fantastic. And some of the time we have left here, let's kind of circle back, put a bow on the pipeline, indication expansion. You chat a little bit about that. Anything to sort of add there?
Yeah, there's a lot more in the pipeline, and we continue to look for other assets to drop into our orphan lung strategy. And so the next drug up that looks pretty promising is nintedanib. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that the brand name of that product is called OFEV, and that's marketed by Boehringer Ingelheim. And the challenge with that drug is you really can't dose it much higher. It treats idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a rare disease, about 100,000 patients. And we believe by putting it directly into our technology, directly into the lung, that we can really minimize the systemic side effects and hopefully show better efficacy or equal efficacy with better safety, right? So that's a lot of the work on the nintedanib that's moving forward. The next product, we have a product called Pulmozyme. That's a nebulized product for cystic fibrosis. It does about $800 million a year. It's marketed by Roche. That too, we believe will move forward in the patients in the near future. And cystic fibrosis has come a long way. These people used to die at 20 years old, 30 years old. Now they're living, I think, 46 or 42, some age into the 40s now. And I think that's just where we are today. I think we'll keep extending their life with the innovation happening in Vertex. And then after that, we got an ALK5 inhibitor, TGF beta. That's a very interesting target, really does wonders. We know it's a valid target. This class of drugs has failed in development for lots of reasons. And we hope that by putting it in our technology, again, lowering the dose systemically and into the lung, may eliminate a lot of those dosing related side effects. So still early, high risk, high reward. IPF, sorry, my dog isn't here if you heard her. High risk, high reward programs, but these patients are dying in 5 years, and we think we need to bring options to them. And so between Tyvaso DPI or Tyvaso nebulizer and IPF with Martine, United Therapeutics, and our nintedanib, as well as ALK5 and MannKind 501, we have 3 shots on goal for IPF. That's a really huge unmet need, and we're excited about helping those patients.
Fantastic. We're almost sort of reaching the end of the time here. From an investor standpoint, over the next 12 months or so, as we're sort of in 2023 here, what are some of the key milestones that Benchmarks folks should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, look, MannKind's had a great track record over the last 3 years on shareholder return, shareholder performance, and that's during a time frame when we were transitioning the company from where we were to where we were going. And I always tell people the decisions I made in 17, 18 just came out last year. The decisions I made in 18, 19 will come out this year, and the decisions I made in 19, 20 will come out next year. So, I'm already ahead of the curve, and so we have a really nice growth story for the foreseeable future with multiple shots on goal, multiple revenue drivers, multiple upside scenarios. And, there's always a downside to any stock you could look at. But I think this leadership team and this company has come from really nowhere. And we've generated a pretty substantial shareholder return and outperformed the index over the last 3 and 4 or 5 years. And I think our future is bright. And I think we got a lot of good things that people will be happy about. And our ability to help thousands of more patients than we are today is really palpable. And having just come out of our sales meeting this past week, been in Danbury, we have a lot of great talent here that's really driving for change and trying to really make Afrezza more successful, make V-Go more successful. And I think the next 2-3 months will be really telling about how much can MannKind help change orphan lung disease and diabetes. And I think investors should just keep watching us and if there's dips, great, but otherwise, I just think we have a really bright future. The economy's tough. The layoffs are real across my industry. The lack of funding is real, but we are well funded to fund our growth plans. We don't need to raise any money, and we got a great, solid employee base that's going to help us go to new levels. So we're excited.
Fantastic. No, I think that's a great way to wrap things up. Mike, thank you very much for the time. As always, we greatly appreciate it. Just remind investors and anyone out there that has not already signed up for a one-on-one meeting. If you'd like to do so, shoot me an email, bloom@lythampartners.com. Visit the website, lythampartners.com/virtual. Click on that one-on-one meeting request button. We'll look to get you taken care of. We hope everyone enjoys the conference here today. Mike, thank you very much as always.
Thank you. Sorry, my voice is a little low, but I've been speaking for last week straight, so apologize.
No worries. Appreciate it. Take care.